Hello, viewers and listeners, I guess. Hi, welcome back to another uh, episode of the Magic Morning Wood, where we talk about movies. Hi, Clive. How's it going?
Um, uh, Good.
Great.
I was
Moving on.
trying to think of something
Uh-huh.
clever, but it's not my
Good.
forte. No,
This is you you're talking about, right?
exactly,
Right.
exactly. How about you, Ron? How are you?
Um. Uh. Fine. Okay.
Okay,
Great.
excellent.
All right. Moving on. So, what are we talking about today, Clive? So we are continuing our algorithm
Hmm.
of talking about movies that are connected to other movies
Yes.
and in some way.
What
So,
you do?
what do you do? What great idea. Our last movie that we talked about was We Need to Talk About Kevin,
Right.
and we did. We talked about
Yes,
Kevin.
you
Yeah,
did.
we needed to, and we did it.
You
So,
did it.
and
Job
now we
done.
need to talk about something that's connected to Kevin.
Right. That's the sequel.
The sequel. We need to talk
Yeah.
about Kevin, comma, 2, T-O-O. Right.
Kevin Boogaloo.
All right. Kevin. So, my loose link was through sociopathic fucked up kids,
Oh, okay.
and
I was wondering what the link was. I have to admit.
right. So yeah. So yeah, murderous kids, and yeah, and so the movie I chose was The Killing of a Sacred Deer, 2017.
Yeah, I don't know what to get all
Oh,
excited about.
okay. Okay. Written and directed by Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yes.
The really fascinating writer director, Yorgos Lanthimos, who always has interesting stuff to show and say.
He's got another film. I looked it up because it's been so after this he did The Favorite, right, which
Right.
was one that kind of got him a lot of acclaim, right?
Mhm.
So he's got another one on the way, Poor Things, based on a novel by Alistair Gray. So I'm quite looking forward to see. I'm quite looking forward to see that.
Poor Things. Okay, yeah. Okay. It's a sci-fi romance. Okay. With Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, Rami Youssef.
Yes,
Okay.
and well, the Alistair Gray thing. I've not read Alistair Gray before, but oddly enough, for the other podcast that I do with Nick when we talk about books, he's chosen a
Talk about what? You talk about boobs?
books.
Oh,
Actually, we do talk about
books.
boobs quite a lot, actually. But yeah, he's chosen another Alistair Gray novel to read. So if that's good, I'll jump on the other one, Poor Things, in time for the Lanthimos adaptation.
So, sorry, you said another Alistair Gray.
Book.
What? This is an Alistair Gray book?
No, the Poor Things is
Oh,
based.
Poor Things. I see.
Yeah,
Okay, right.
yeah.
Okay.
No, and the one we're reading is Lan. I don't know. Have you read? You may know Alistair Gray. I don't know, but I've
No.
never read him. Right. Okay. Anyway, that was a fun little tangent there.
Right. Yeah. So Yorgos co-wrote this, I guess, movie with Efthimis Philippou.
Yes, that's his usual screenwriter, isn't it? And and again, I don't know. You may know more than this because you've studied theatre to a certain extent. This is based on a ancient Greek play, right? Iphigenia in Aulis.
Oh, Iphigenia. Yeah. Okay.
Iphigenia, all right. See, you already knew more than I did. By Euripides. Euripides trousers. You mend these trousers.
Right.
So that got a big.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was based on Iphigenia. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know how close. I mean, do you know Iphigenia then? Is it a play you
I can't remember the story specifically, but I mean I know of the play and I know Aristophanes, but I
you
can't
know
remember
how
what.
much is because I was guessing the connection is it's something to do with giving up of something because someone else lost something, or I guess that's what the theme is, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean Iphigenia was a Greek, was the daughter of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra.
It's like a Trojan War adjacent story, isn't it? It's something to do with having to
Oh yeah, it's in the story, Agamemnon, which is her dad,
Yeah.
offends the goddess Artemis on his way to the Trojan War, hunts and kills one of her sacred stags. That's that's where the title comes from. And she retaliates by preventing the Greek troops from reaching Troy unless he kills his eldest daughter, Iphigenia, as a human sacrifice.
There we go.
Yeah. So okay, that's where it comes from.
I know there is there's at least one Iphigenia film from like the 70s, isn't there? I think, which I'm kind of keen to see, which tells the story straight up, I think. But
right.
But yeah, it's an Euripides. I'm going to do it again. Euripides trousers. You mend these trousers. Yes, killing of a sacred deer. Take it away, Ron.
So you've seen this before, right, Clive? Right?
Yeah.
I think you had recommended this movie to me. I think before I didn't.
So,
yeah. So this was also this was on my list, as I said last episode about Kevin. We didn't talk about Kevin. This was also on my list of things that I've been meaning to watch for a long time, and I didn't actually know much about it, but I did know it was about this kind of weird kid, which seemed to fit in with the theme of the weird kid in Kevin. So that's why I chose it as my loose link.
To be fair, it is a pretty tenuous fucking link, but we'll let you get away with it because I thought you'd seen this film before, you see, but
no. So, but yeah, it's about
we talked about it, but I guess
no. I remember you talking about it that you recommended it to me, and I had it on my. It was like at the top of my list for like a long time. So I was like, and I know it was about a kid that's the only like vaguely what I knew it was about. I mean, even in the synopsis on IMDb, it's that when the behavior of a teenage boy he's taken under his wing turns sinister. So based on that, a teenage boy's behavior turns sinister sounds pretty close to Kevin, right? So in that case, that's why that was my link, right? So anyway, this movie is pretty remarkable, I have to say. It's a number of facets, I guess. So in the basic story of this is you've got sorry, we didn't talk about the cast, right? So starring Colin Farrell as the main dad, and Nicole Kidman as the mother, and of course you're gonna have to tell me, is it Keegan?
Kyogan, I think.
Kyogan?
Yeah.
Isn't that, is it Kyo? You pronounce the E and the O different?
No, yeah, I think it's Barry Keoghan, as far as I know.
Okay, it's Gaelic pronunciation, right? So
yeah, I know what you mean. There's some other famous figures with that spelling which are pronounced Keegan, but I think in this case it's Barry Keoghan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Barry, and so they're and so they're kind of the main, and then of course there's also Alicia Silverstone pops up as Barry's mother.
Yeah.
Not
quite memorable.
Memorable. As not sorry. His first name is Martin, so Martin's mother, right? So, and also their daughter, played by Raffi Cassidy.
Raffi Cassidy, I think she's up and coming star as well now.
Up and coming, yeah. And also their son, played by Sonny Suljic.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so basically you see Colin Farrell. He's a surgeon, and he is meeting in secret with this kid and giving him expensive presents, like this expensive watch, but you're not really sure why they're meeting, and he's lying to other people about meeting him. So it's obviously some kind of a secret relationship, and you're not really sure why or what's going on. And similar to Kevin, which was you're kind of drip fed the details, it was similar to this one, is that you're sort of not really sure exactly what the relationship is, or you think that maybe it's like his love child, maybe a secret love child or something. But then he talks about his father all the time, who is recently deceased, and his mother. So it's not that. So you're not really sure why he's doing all this stuff. And he tells his colleagues and his wife that he's about it. But then he recommends, it's like, hey, why don't you come over to my house for dinner? So it's not obviously not a big secret, because he's willing to share this relationship with his family, even though he's sort of been untruthful about it in the past. Or it's really kind of mysterious. You're not sure what's going on. And then he comes over and he kind of works his way into he's very kind of relatively charismatic, and his family kind of all like him and work his way into it. And so then but he gets increasingly more kind of clingy to Colin Farrell, like calling him and wanting to meet him for dinners and wanting to come over and more and more and more and more and more, and to the point where he starts to kind of back off a little, like this is a bit too much, right? And also there's a budding romantic relationship between the kid and the older daughter,
right?
And so that's also kind of working and stuff. And then eventually it comes out that you find out, again, spoilers for this movie, so lots of spoilers here, is that the Colin Farrell was the surgeon on Martin's dad, and allowed him to die, or he died for whatever reason. You don't know if it's through a malpractice or if it was just an accident. I mean,
he used to have a drinking problem, didn't he?
Right, used to have a drinking problem, yeah. And so Stephen, who is Colin Farrell, claims that it was just it just happened. It was just not his fault, but it was like a death on the operating table. But you're suspecting that maybe it was possibly that he was drunk at the time.
Yeah, the main actor you forgot to mention, Bill Camp, isn't as well, right? And
right,
there's like a thing between, because Bill Camp's the anaesthetist and he's the surgeon, right? And they both they tell exactly the same thing but slightly differently. Like, no, it's not possible for a surgeon to kill. It's always an anaesthetist's fault.
Anesthesiologist,
and Bill Camp's the other way around.
Yeah, it's never anesthesiologist. It's always the surgeon, right? Yeah, so they both blame each other, but as it goes along, you're more to believe Bill Camp, even though he's not. He also has this thing where he kind of like blackmails the wife into giving him a hand job. So anyway, so then Martin, the kid, finally sits him down in the hospital. Kind of finally tracks him down and says, "Look, I'm really sorry, but unless you kill someone in your family, they're all going to die." Right, and he does it almost as if it's like, it's out of my hands. It's nothing I can do about it, right? So this is just what's going to happen. So, and so there's 4 steps. First they're going to lose their the use of their limbs, or in this specifically their legs, I guess, right? But he says limbs.
And then wasting disease, isn't it?
Wasting disease, and then they're not going to eat. They're going to refuse food to the point of starvation. And then eyes will bleed, and then they'll die, right? So, and it'll go one by one, and your whole family will die this way unless you kill one of them, right? And so he's like, "What? Like, you're crazy, obviously." And but of course, sure enough, it starts to happen. Starting with the son. The son kind of can't move his legs, and then little by little, then the daughter happens, and never gets to the wife. She never loses her legs, but
next, I suppose.
Yeah, but she would have been. The idea is that she would have been next, right? And so then, at first, it's they think it's just something medical, and you start doing all these sort of tests and medical things, but nothing's really panning out. And then eventually, he starts to believe that this kid, that it's some kind of, it's never explained, and he never really wanted to be explained. It's just like a curse of some kind, and so it's just that's just it just is, right? But it's obviously something that the kid has done. He's cursed them somehow, but you don't really know, and it's just I don't know.
It's almost like a karmic death or something, isn't it? For the loss of his.
Yeah, it's just karma.
Atonement or something.
You always get the impression that he's responsible and could stop it if he wanted to, but at the same time, he's always kind of puts it off as like, well, this is what has to happen. Is like, and it's almost out of his hands, right? So you don't really know, but it's almost the fact that you don't know makes it better, right? Is that you don't know what's happening, right? So
and to that point, I mean, it is just a brilliant casting. I mean, I love Barry Keoghan anyway, but fuck me, is he good in this?
Yeah, It reminded me. Did you see him in the Sheeran?
Yes. Yeah.
He's like this kid. He's so good, right, man? He's really,
Oh,
really
he's
good.
amazing. He's amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
Every time I see him in, I'm always, me and my wife are both like, hey,
Yeah,
it's him again. We're always
yeah, yeah.
Barry Cogan. He's just,
He,
yeah.
he didn't have that much to do in Eternals though, but that was
Is he in Eternals, is he?
yeah. He's one of the Eternals. Yeah. So, but anyway, so yeah. So everyone was, I think, really well cast in this movie. So it was, yeah, really good. And so yeah, so then eventually it keeps happening to the point where they have to realize that he was telling the truth, and this is something he's got to do. And so they, kidnap him and try to, and they, beat him up, tried to get him to, change it and whatever. But he's like, there's nothing, it's gonna happen, no matter what. You better do it. Run out of time, right? And so yeah, and so then it, gets worse and worse and worse, and then and you can, it's just this like ticking clock, the whole thing, right? You just feel like the tension of this, that he's got to, kill one of his family members, right? So moving up to it, and you can't imagine that you'd ever get to the point where he would willingly do this. One thing that I never that I didn't think about when I was watching the movie, but occurred to me afterwards, he never once explored the idea of killing himself, though.
Right.
Yeah, which is because technically he's part of the family.
Yeah.
And you would think that would be part of it. That would have stopped the curse, because he's the one that had the bad karma in the first place, right, for killing the dad, right? But that's never even explored. So I'm wondering, did you think about that at all?
I don't know. He were a member of your family. I suppose he counts. I suppose that would work. And maybe that's something. Yes, but I just remembering when you mentioned there. There's one, because we should mention that this is a very, very darkly comic film.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a great scene, like just towards when he's kind of resigned himself to, oh fuck, I guess I actually have to do this, and he goes to his kids' school and he's asking the teacher, like, how are they doing, and he just goes, well, do you prefer one more than
if you had to choose one, who would you choose?
Just desperately trying to find some way to pass off the choice to someone else.
Yeah, to somebody else. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious. And the other bits, just to get to explain the tone of this, how kind of darkly comic it is. There's a bit where his son's in the hospital in a wheelchair. He's trying to get him to walk, and he just basically just
throws him on the floor
again and again. And I couldn't help but laugh out loud. But it's pretty grim. It's grim comedy, but is kind of undeniably funny parts.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it has to be. It's a little bit of a release, because the tension is really, like, it really builds a lot. It's like real pressure.
Oh yeah, when you kids are just pulling themselves around, and also when it gets to, because the other thing, it is a very pessimistic view of human life, right? And even the kids, like, they're trying to convince, like, they're trying to make the case that they're the favorite child and you should kill the other one.
Yes, yeah. And can I have this after you're dead?
Your MP3 player. Yeah. Oh no, it doesn't. What I like about it is it doesn't flinch, right? It plays it all the way right through to the end without flinching, which is great, I think.
Yeah, and anyway, so, and again, spoilers again. So finally ends up at the end where he just puts his family, puts them in chairs in the living room, and like kind of, and he stands in the middle, and he puts a blindfold on. He puts pillowcases over their heads and just spins around and randomly fires his gun, so it makes it accidental, right, or makes it random, and then he ends up killing his son. The end. Right, that's the end of the movie, right? And then you see them at the very, very end, is that you see him and his wife and the daughter all fixed now at the same diner that he used to meet Martin, and Martin's there kind of looks back, and that's the end, right? So but yeah, it's such a, it's so yeah. So at the end you're kind of like, well, what am I supposed to learn from this, right? So, but I guess, I don't know if you're supposed to learn anything. But of course, the other element that you really have to talk about with this movie is, of course, the line delivery, of course, right? So,
yes,
yeah. So I mean, you can't talk about this movie without talking about the acting style or the specifically the directing choices of this. Yeah. So of course, the all the dialogue is delivered completely flat with very very little emotion, and the things they talk about are things that are like it's very very pointedly, how do I explain this, like they like it's very kind of like um really kind of rant like commonplace, like everyday things,
Banal kind of.
very banal things, but it's all done extremely formally and
Yes,
and
yes.
laid out. Yeah, so it's very very everything is super super formal, and right to that, and there's no, it's very like this kind of like it was almost Brechtian almost in that
It
everything is
is.
very like
Yes.
it's
Alienation
very,
device, right?
yeah, it's a alienate very alienation, alienating you from them, but also alienating them from each
Yeah.
other, right? Which is, it's just a, I can't
No, it is
emphasize
difficult to
how
articulate.
brilliant of an idea that was, right? So
Yeah.
it's just something you would never, most people wouldn't just even think of to do in a movie like this. You would think you would go realistic, but that choice just elevates this movie from just the kind of like a thriller
Yeah.
to like just a masterpiece, I'd say.
Well,
Just
yeah, I agree with you. It's a great film.
yeah.
What's interesting is it's a thing that Lanthimos does in his English language. So it's difficult for us to tell as well because we're not Greek, right? But
Right.
he in his, I'm not sure if in his Greek language films like Dogtooth and Alps, I'm not. I suspect it's the same thing, but it's difficult for us to pick up on, obviously because we can't speak Greek, right? But he does all his films, his English language films. Favorite had that to it as well.
Yeah, also
Lob-
the lobster too,
yeah,
right? Right, the lobster.
but the thing with the lobster was, which I get Colin Farrell again, right? Have you've seen the lobster, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So the lobster I quite liked, but the lobster was a bit more. It was a bit more obviously kind of comedic and surreal, and that line delivery thing. Again, it's the same, but it didn't quite work in the same way. Maybe because it was a more broadly comedic film or something like this. But this one is ostensibly pretty serious, right? And this is the best I've seen Lanthimos. But like, I like The Favorite as well, but I think this is better than The Favorite. Like The Favorite was very, 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 very good, if slightly overrated. People lost their shit about it, but it was a good film.
Yeah.
But this is my choice of Lanthimos film. Like, this is the best he's so far. I really looking forward to Poor Things and whatever he does. But here, yeah, that what he does, what's really remarkable is it's striking from the beginning. You're like, whoa, why is everyone talking like this?
Okay, like that, yeah.
But then what's really good when you're watching The Lobster, that feeling never goes away. What's interesting with this is it totally normalizes it, and by halfway through the film, you don't notice it anymore.
Yeah, right.
You're totally into that world, and that's kind of remarkable. I don't.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but at the same time, it's not only is it normalizing, but it creates certain dynamics that wouldn't have been there with normal,
right.
You know what I mean? So, it brings out certain, like, dynamics and relationships, and creates, like, especially in the few times when there is emotion, it's so much stronger, right? Because there's like one part where he like starts like dumping out all the stuff in his kitchen, right? Remember, he starts like breaking all the stuff out of his. He gets upset with his wife, and he and his wife are having an argument, and he's just dumping stuff around, right? And it's so much more powerful, based, because it's so much different than the rest of the movie, right? So you earn those, right? In acting, you talk about earning a pause, or earning the emotional outburst, right? You can't just keep it all up there. You gotta get there, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so much, it stands out so much more because it's so different. It's so different from the rest of it, right? So
it also plays into, I think it plays into the bleak worldview as well, is when anyone does do something emotional or show so much emotion, they seem almost like foolish or something, because the natural normal tone of the universe is this bleak kind of just existential, the heat death of the universe is coming, and when someone is hysterical, it's just like, it's
like,
what are you
so
like,
silly. You're just overreacting, right? So but it's Yeah, but I thought everybody was really, really excellent. It's especially Barry Keoghan but even like all the family, like even the
Everybody is
two
good.
kids were
Yeah,
really amazing. Yeah, so I thought Nicole Kidman was always solid ever. So
wonderfully shot as well by Thimios Bakatakis. Great looking film. Interestingly, there's no credit for the music, but the music is really important as well, right? The score is fantastic. Like it's very subtle, but it just drops these ominous notes every now and again.
Right, yeah.
But there's no credit for it, oddly enough. So I don't know.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there's credits for like people who did like sound design and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if that's who's, but there's no like composer credit on the film at all. It's kind of interesting. But no, yeah, I absolutely think it's. I mean, how about you? Which of his English language films is this your favorite as well? Or?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I saw the Lobster first,
yeah,
and I remember being like really kind of interested by it. That it was really like, oh, this is such an odd thing, and I remember being a little bit confused by the line delivery thing with his, and I don't think I really got it. But I was like, it was an interesting choice, but I didn't really get why.
Well, I don't think it works as well. It doesn't work as well.
Yeah. And then I saw The Favorite, and I thought The Favorite was okay, but I didn't really love it as much as everybody else did. I thought it was okay. I didn't really. I don't think I even put together that it was him at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. But based on this movie, I really want to go back and watch both of those again, to be honest, and watch
check out his Greek films as well, like especially Dogtooth. You should probably see.
Dogtooth, yeah, and those other ones. Yeah, I want to see as many other ones as I can. So, I was really impressed by this movie a lot. So, yeah.
Good. I was very happy to watch it again as well. It's on second viewing as well. It's just because, to be honest, I was slightly, because I don't like to watch films again so soon after I've recently seen them, and I saw this more or less when it came out, which I suppose it's 5-6 years ago now. But I was slightly I thought, not that it was because I love it, but it was just I know what it's going to be, and I didn't think. But I have to admit, I put it on, and then I did get sucked straight back into it. So
right, yeah.
So it was a pleasure to watch it again, and it holds up. It holds up really, really well.
Right. So and now actually I didn't know the Iphigenia connection, which the only question I had was about the title, so that makes a lot more sense now. Yeah. So So.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite songs, "The Girl from Virginia." That's the one, right?
Young and lovely, the girl from named Iphigenia goes killing it at her.
You know the lyrics. Is that one that plays on cruise ships a lot? Maybe is that why you know the lyrics?
I don't know.
It strikes me as a cruise ship.
I don't know why I know that song.
Song.
I don't think it's on cruise ships, but I've heard that several times, but I don't know where though.
Okay.
Anyway, this is fascinating.
It is. Right. So, my reaction to we need to talk about Kevin was to go for another Lynn Ramsey film. In fact, her debut feature from 1999, Ratcatcher. Had you seen this before, Ron?
Nope.
Okay. So this is set in a state in Glasgow in, I guess it must be, was it 1976 or 77? There was the big garbage strike. I think maybe 76. So there's a garbage strike. People aren't picking up the rubbish. Was
this all over the UK or just in Glasgow?
All over the UK.
What was the reason? It was just a strike. It was just a worker strike.
Yeah, it was a strike. Yeah.
Do you? I mean, it would have been before you, I guess, right? But do your parents remember this?
Yeah, as far as I was born. But
do your parents remember this?
Yeah, well, it's a bit. I was very familiar with it anyway, just because it's part of the Sex Pistols story, right? It's like that's the background about when they were formed. You know, there was all these garbage bags piled up in the streets and stuff. So it's something I'm very familiar with.
I don't know that part of the Sex Pistols. What does that have to do with the Sex?
Well, it's not directly, but that's part of the kind of, the idea that, when the Sex Pistols came along, it was the 3-day week and high unemployment, and there was blackouts across the country, and there was garbage piled high in the street, and yet there were these like musicians on the television playing like wanky prog. That's the setup. Is that was the where the Pistols, that was the kind of cultural backdrop from which the Pistols kind of emerged, right? Was this kind of pretty depressing kind of backdrop.
Oh, Save the Queen, that kind of.
Yeah. So and so basically there's a lad, our main actor, what's his name, William Eady, and he's a little boy. How old would you say is he 10, 11, 12, something like that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, around there. Yeah.
And there's a very dangerous canal that runs through this housing estate, and he's pushed. We see early on there's another kid who we think is actually going to be our lead protagonist, right? And he's having like a fight in the canal with our main character James, and James pushes him in, and it turns out he dies, right? He gets, I don't know, his foot trapped or something down in this canal. And
it didn't really show. It just said they're fighting, and then he pushes him, and he walks away, and then he turns around, and he's still there.
He's obviously he's got his foot trapped or something. It's it's a thing that did happen. these kind of these dangerous, dirty old canals. You would hear about people falling in and never coming out again. So basically he's plagued with guilt throughout the rest of the film, and the most of the film is more about mood and background and tone than anything else, right? And you just see his life in this somewhat squalid housing estate full of kind of rats because of the garbage strike, and he's living with his parents and his brothers and sister, and they're obviously not they're not doing great economically, not too bad, but they
Was it two sisters?
And
the older girl, isn't she a sister too?
Yeah, two sisters, yeah.
And then two sisters, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And
they kind of want to get out of there and move into a new place, right? And he gets on the bus.
Yeah, looks like there's some kind of government service where they're finding people with low income houses and then moving them to new subsidized housing or something.
Yeah, and they're checking if they're what's the word, if they live up to the standard, if they're eligible, that's the word I'm looking for, eligible to be moved into housing. And but it's obviously a very kind of because he lets them into the house right at the wrong moment. Yeah,
when Dad's passed out drunk and he's got stuff all over his face. And
so it's a very snobby kind of, moving these people because they'll just ruin the place kind of attitude, right? Yeah, so they're looking to be rehoused, and the boy as well, he takes a bus out of town at one point, and he finds this new housing estate that's in the middle of being built, and he wanders about it. It's almost like an idyllic paradise, right? And then it gets a bit magic realism with this field out back with tall grass, and yes, and what else happens? Something else happens. What happens? Oh yeah, and there's another character, I suppose the other main character we should mention. There's a girl, right, who's the kind of underage estate prostitute who the boys kind of, she's not yet, she's like a prostitute in the making, right? She's like
she's kind of like the bike that all the kids ride, kind of thing. But looks like she kind of like lets it happen, kind of thing. But you're not really sure why. But she's kind of she's got these really thick glasses, and they throw them in the canal, and looks like she's kind of bullied, but I think she kind of likes the attention.
Well, it's the only attention she gets, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then I suppose there's another character who's there's a boy with a hamster. There's a mouse, isn't it? And he attaches it to a balloon so it can go to the moon, which is another wonderful little bit of magical realism where this
Right, yeah.
mouse goes and joins it.
But I think that was more of like a dream, because like as soon as that finishes, he wakes up. So it's sort of like he sees this happen, and then the idea that I got, that was that he was dreaming that it was happening, and that was.
I don't know. I think he did. I think he did tie the mouse to the balloon though, because later on.
No, that was real.
Yeah.
And then he saw the mouse go, and then later that night he went to sleep and was dreaming about.
Oh yeah.
Dream. Yes.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I don't think the mouse actually went to the moon. Yeah.
No, but what I mean is I don't think it was magical realism so much as I think it was just his dream.
Well, I suppose it works that way though, right? Yeah. Yes, I mean it's a difficult one to do a plot synopsis of, really, and I don't kind of want to give the very.
It's not really a plot. It's just sort of like a
slice of life, isn't
slice
it?
of life. Exactly what I was gonna say. There's sort of like bits and pieces, like random scenes of his life. He kind of has this. He meets the mom of the kid who he's kind of killed, and
shoes.
Yeah, and gives him his shoes and stuff like that. And you see them kind of moving out, and mom's not doing well, obviously, right? And and then there's a whole other bit where he's got this other friend, the guy with the mouse, and just other stuff with him where he's kind of implied to be sort of like mentally disabled a little bit, or at least slow, right? And so then he's kind of makes friends with him. He's the only one that's kind of nice to him, but it turns out, and spoiler, that I guess at the end
I think we don't want to say what happens right at the very end. I think.
Okay. I would like to talk about it though, because I really wanted to know what you thought about it. So
okay, well, let's see if it comes up, and if it potential spoiler alert, we may spoil the very ending of this film if it can't be helped, right? But Ratcatcher, this is a film that I had seen once before, and fell in love with. I didn't see it when it was new. Like I said before, when we were watching, when you talk about Kevin, that was my first Lynn Ramsey film, and then I went back and I watched this, and floored by it. Like both times. This is something I don't do much, but I cried both times watching this.
Really? At what part?
At the end, actually, and not specifically because of the end. I think it's such an overwhelming experience for me. It just, everything about this film it's not. I didn't grow up in this place. I didn't grow up in a place like this, but there are so many bits and pieces that resemble parts of my life that I have experienced, parts that friends of mine experienced, and just general patchwork quilt of it just feels really, really, really authentic to me, and charged with just some sort of I don't know, the overall feeling is something about a childhood yearning or a dreaming or something, and it just straight into my wherever these things go, and just floored me. And this time as well, I mean, I was in tears, I was in bits by the end of this film, but not in a bad way, just in a it's a very cathartic experience. It's very difficult for me to actually articulate, because my reaction to it is so primal that I find it hard to really explain.
I had a feeling it would be like that. It reminded me of Kes.
Okay.
In that I was watching it, and I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the kind of the slice of life aspect of it, but I got the impression that I didn't have as much shared experience with this movie as you did.
Okay.
So that that I was thinking that I was watching it. I was like, I could tell that this is not really where you're not Scottish and you didn't live during the garbage strike and all that stuff, but that there was probably like a universality of some of sort of British kids upbringing, which is kind of inextricable from this movie that you would probably connect with, which I don't really have where I came from, which was similar to Kes, which is that, I mean, you didn't have a hawk, but at the same time, it's sort of like it was so important. That movie was so important for you because it just spoke to you as when you were a kid, right? So the experience. So my impression watching this was that it was similar in that way.
Okay.
That it was just So I didn't have quite as much of a connection to it, but I still appreciated it for what it was, though. So,
so you did get on with this film. You did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think actually I watched it almost twice, which I rarely do, because when I finished it, I felt like I missed something. I felt like I wasn't quite getting something, so I went back and I didn't watch it the whole way through, but I kind of like watched certain scenes again, so just to kind of and I appreciated it more I think the second time I watched it, because there were parts I wasn't really getting how it flowed, and then once I got the whole thing and then went back and saw the pieces together, I appreciated it a little bit more than, or a lot more than I did. So I think I thought it was a quite well done movie, and I like this sort of like slice of life. I don't have as much connection to it personally, but I think I think I could see how it would be an important piece for, especially for people of that time or of this similar shared experience, and even just as a storytelling, it was quite well done, right? So it's so hard with kid actors, but I mean that kid really knocked it out of the park, and it was too bad that he never acted again, I guess, right? So
doesn't seem to have been in anything, no. That which is often the case, oddly enough, right? There's sometimes you do get these phenomenal just one-offs, right? Maybe he wasn't into it in the end. It's just
maybe.
But I appreciate that. It would be too much to, and I think even like, for instance, kids growing up either in the setting of the film or where I grew up or whatever. Now, maybe they wouldn't even connect. I think it's a very latter half of the 20th century sort of thing,
Right.
But it's interesting because I was wondering about that. Like I was wondering how much of it does still kind of connect on a larger, maybe universal level about just childhood, and so obviously there's something there, right? It's not overly specific to the time and place.
Right.
I mean, again, it's one of those films I love to bits, but I don't know if I really have much
an objective opinion of it. Much to say about it, right? So I mean, it's I think it's, I mean, again, as you said, there's no real story to speak of. It's just sort of like random scenes from this kid's life. Sometimes they're in his head, sometimes they're not. It's but it was interesting. I mean, I didn't know much about this sort of time in Glasgow, so it was I didn't even know about the garbage strike, so it was interesting to see this. And I wasn't entirely. That's why I asked you at the beginning. I wasn't entirely sure if it was a garbage strike or if it was just like a place where garbage wasn't picked up much, or that this is just what they did, was they just threw the garbage around. So I wasn't entirely sure, because they might have just been like a squalid, low income area where they just didn't have much garbage, delivery.
I thought it was the Scottish version of the Kowloon walled city or something like that.
I guess, yeah. So that maybe this is just how they lived, right? But the other movie it reminded me of was Trainspotting. In that generally speaking, Scottish filmmakers and movies about Scotland made by Scottish people tends to be really fucking bleak. I was like, it's just, as I was watching this, the Ewan McGregor line kind of kept ringing through my head. It's like, shite being Scottish, right? Like,
you could follow it up. You could watch what's the Proclaimers musical called? Is it Sunshine on Leith? That's a very
Oh, really?
sunny kind of
Is it? Okay, I don't know that
cheerful,
one. Yeah, so
or
okay.
more cheerful version than this. Then let's put it that way.
Yeah. But anyway, I think the Scottish people have like really I don't know if it's that they got the kind of the short end of the stick, or they just they're just not that, maybe it's the weather, they're just not that happy people. Not that happy up there, I guess. Yeah.
If you're Scottish, let us know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah. My grandmother was Scottish. She always seemed happy, but maybe it's because she
So,
moved to Canada.
so I know though, you do like, so after this, Lynn Ramsey's next feature was Morven Keller, right?
Yeah, which I saw years ago. Yeah, when it
Yeah.
first came out, and I remember really enjoying it. I haven't seen it 20 years, so but I might be interested to go back and rewatch that one again. So
Yeah, that's also a good film. And then, so my two favorites are Ratcatcher and Kevin, but the other two she's done so to date as well, Morven Keller, and then the one with
we're never really here.
yeah.
And which I didn't see that one. How's that one? You never really hear?
Well, yeah, all the films are excellent. I'm definitely a bit of a Lynn Ramsey super fan, and her short films as well are really interesting. Some of them you can see on the Criterion disc of Ratcatcher. I mean, she's really, really, really talented. I don't know. Oh yeah, something's coming up. I saw something was in development with Jennifer Lawrence, but I don't know how close that is to happening, or because the other kind of, it was a bit of a scandal, right? The other film that she was supposed to have made at some point was it called Annie Get Your Gun? Or no, Jane Got a Gun. What's the film with Natalie Portman? Like a Western. It came out a few. Jane Got Her Gun?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I missed that one.
So that, no, I didn't see it either, but that was originally to be a Lynn Ramsey film.
Okay.
And there was some controversy. Jane Got a Gun, that's the one. Ended up being directed by Gavin O'Connor. Yeah, so Lynn Ramsey apparently was, well, there's different versions of the story, but the way the studio tells it is that it was all ready to go, and Lynn Ramsey just didn't turn up. She just refused to turn up to direct it. But then, from the other side, the story is that, yeah, apparently she gave warning a long time before production started that she wasn't going to be able to make the film, and she was just ignored. And yeah, so then it was a whole big mess, and I don't think the end product that was actually made it doesn't sound very interesting. I don't think people were very but I'm slightly curious to see it, just because if it's a and I don't know if it's based on anything, but if it's a story that Lynn Ramsey was interested in telling, and there's probably something there,
right.
Slightly curious to see the film.
Yeah, I remember that movie. Yeah, and Natalie Portman just being sort of like a kind of a questionable Western star. So I think I just gave it a pass because it just didn't seem up my alley. But that
was the film. That was the film. That was before You Were Never Really Here. So I remember when You Were Never Really Here did come up, I was quite pleased, because I was wondering, oh no, has Lynn Ramsey kind of like been blackballed or something, like or blacklisted even, or both. But no, apparently she just doesn't make films that often, right? But
right, yeah.
So far, everyone's been.
Well, it looks like she's in pre-production. It's called Die My Love with Jennifer Lawrence. Thing.
Yeah,
it's called, which is a horror. But also interestingly, it looks like she's in development for a couple of different ones. She's in development for a new one called Mobius.
Oh, okay.
Which we talked about. Remember that movie we talked about before, the Mobius one, right?
Well, we talked two Mobius ones. We talked the Korean,
the train one.
Yeah, the train one and the Korean no cock one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so another one called Mobius. I don't know what this one specifically will be. Okay. And maybe a remake of Polaris.
Polaris, not Polaris.
Or not Solaris. No, not a remake then. Sorry, something called Polaris.
Okay. Well, I know she was at one point, I can't remember, at some point, one thing she wanted to make was a remake of Moby Dick in space.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's Mobius. because Mobius, maybe it's like a
Mobius
sci-fi
Dick.
version of
Yeah, could
yeah.
be. Mobius
And it
Dick.
looks like she also might be attached to a Stephen King story, which is called the Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon.
Oh, okay. Yes,
That's it.
we shall see. But
That's a Stephen King movie.
but anything that she comes up with is probably going to be at the very least.
Yeah, definitely she's worth watching. So yeah, definitely I'm interested to see You Were Never Really Here, and I might go back and rewatch Mervyn Callar again. Yeah, so maybe for next episode we'll do it.
Well, you never know, because this is Ratcatcher is the film we will be reacting to next time. So until we've had a couple of good double bills in a row now, didn't we? Did Devon, Kevin, and
it's about it's about time you brought out more of your shit again. Where's your
I'll try and fish
you've been actually giving me good movies to watch. Well, I appreciate it. So,
well, right back at
so rare
on Short Circuit, Scott. So right.
Short Circuit was good. Damn it.
See you then. Bye.
See ya.